Good afternoon. I'm Bruce Tatter, CEO at Red Cloud Securities. Today's webinar features Blue Thunder Mining Corp. We're a very exciting gold explorer up in the Chibougamau mining camps. Today I'm joined by Rob Sinnott, CEO, who will be providing an update on the exploration activities of the company, followed by a live question and answer period. Please send us your questions via chat and we'll get to as many as we can. You can type in your questions into the chat box at any time. To start, we'll handle the disclosures and then get right into it. For Blue Thunder, there may be some forward-looking statements made on this call. I would direct listeners to the cautionary note on page 2 of the corporate presentation that they provide on the webinar or on their website. For Red Cloud Securities, I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into the account a particular situation or needs of individuals investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investments. So without ado, I'll turn it over to Rob to begin the presentation. Rob?
Thanks so much, Bruce, and thanks to the Red Cloud Group for putting on this presentation today, and thanks to everyone who's joined in for the call. So I'm just going to start off on some highlights here with the company. As many of you may be aware, we're based in the Chibougamau area, south of the historic Chibougamau mining camp, which produced about 3 billion pounds of copper and 4 million ounces of gold. South of that, there's a cluster of gold occurrences and new discoveries that is a really exciting area, and we have the largest land position in that area right now at about 51,000 hectares. We're on trend with some recent discoveries, including the high-grade Monster Lake, which is a 12-gram deposit discovered by IAMGOLD in a joint venture with Toma Gold, and also the Nelligan deposit, which is a 3.2 million ounce gold deposit grading about a gram. And this is another IAMGOLD discovery in JV with Vanstar. There's a lot of major structures that underlie our property position, and these are historically related to a lot of the gold mineralization in the area. And finally, Quebec, and especially this area, is a fantastic jurisdiction to be in. The infrastructure is great, and working with the Quebec government on various aspects of permitting and claim maintenance is just a pleasure to be there. So just quickly, our 2020 exploration program is underway. We started with phase 1, which was prospecting, mapping, trenching, and channel sampling. And we moved quite quickly into phase 2, and that was right after our financing of about $2.3 million. We have already commenced the drilling at the Fan Camp property, and we're just on the first few holes, but obviously there's a lot of work for us to do to get the core logged and off to the lab. But as soon as we can, we will be releasing exploration results. The final thing I just want to highlight is we're a newcomer just starting out. We're building our position, and we believe there's a great opportunity for a re-rating when you compare ourselves to other companies and explorers in the region. So stay tuned, and as we put out some news, hopefully it's some exciting news down the road. So just a quick update on the company. We have our ticker symbol is BLUE, B-L-U-E. Right now we're hovering in sort of the 12-cent share price range. And we have about 80 million shares outstanding. Fully diluted with options and warrants would be about 98 million, and our market cap sitting at about 9.3 million. Our principal shareholders, Red Cloud, was the group that put the company together several years ago, and they still maintain a large percentage of the company. We have about 11 institutional investors that are invested in the company. A lot of those came in the recent financing, and they hold about 23.5%. Management and board hold about just about 10.5%. O3 Mining is a large shareholder, and they came in when we purchased the Fan Camp and Embry properties from them a few months ago. And Honey Badger is also a large shareholder, as we purchased a lot of geophysical information from them in the past. Retail and others about 23%. So just looking at what we've done in a glance, some of these things I've already touched on, but one of the compelling things about being in this district is that it's not been actively explored since about the 1990s. There has been bits of work done since then, but everything has really picked up in the last 6 months or so, as in concert with the increasing gold price. So back then, when most of the work was done, gold was hovering in the $350 per ounce range. So a lot of discoveries and occurrences that were made were not thought to be economic back then, and we're going back and looking at a lot of these now and finding things that are quite exciting. For example, the Nelligan deposit, which is averaging about a gram of gold, would never have thought to be economic 30 years ago in a much lower gold price regime. The other thing is a lot of the previous work was looking for VMS targets and also straight east-west targets, but what we're also focusing on are the northwest and northeast trending structures, especially where they intersect some of the main east-west structures to look for a more targeted approach to looking for gold. So it's been a busy year. We went public in February of this year through an RTO and listed on the Venture Exchange, as I said, under the symbol blue. We've grown our land position from about 10 or 12,000 hectares when Red Cloud first started the group. We now have 51,000 hectares of what we believe to be prime exploration ground. And one of the highlights was our acquisition of the Fan Camp and Embry properties from O3, which is part of the Osisko group. Over the last few months, we've been very busy doing compilation, reinterpretation of hundreds of historical reports to fine-tune our exploration. We did the financing in June. We raised $2.3 million through a private placement. And right after that, we got the go-ahead to assemble our Quebec-based exploration team and to start committing to doing the phase 1 and phase 2 work, which, as I mentioned previously, was a lot of groundwork, trenching, mapping, prospecting. But more exciting, we've jumped right into the phase 2 program, which is diamond drilling at the Fan Camp property. So this map here that I'm bringing up, this shows our land position. I'm going to just turn on the whiteboard here. Up here, this is the historical Chibougamau mining camp. This is where a lot of the historical copper and gold deposits were located, and they still are there, and there's some exciting prospects there. But down here, this is what we call the Chibougamau Gold Camp. And this is where some of these exciting new discoveries have been made, such as Nelligan right here and Monster Lake, but a lot of historical deposits and operating mines such as Philibert, Meston, Joe Man, and over on the west side, the Fasten deposit. So we have 5 separate properties: the Moose, Fan Camp, Moose East, Nisk, and up here the Embry property. And together these comprise 51,000 hectares, and it's just an exciting opportunity for us. Oh, let me clear that. So in the past, the Moose project, it was explored starting about the 1950s, mostly up to the 80s, and there were a little bits of work done after that. The Fan Camp property was also started exploration about the 1950s, and they did a fair amount of drilling here and there up until the 1990s, and a little bit of trenching and surface work since then, but not a heck of a lot. Our Nisk and Moose East properties are mostly unexplored, and we've done some airborne geophysics over these areas, and there's some pretty exciting targets, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So over the whole property, there has been 343 core holes. These mostly been pretty shallow, generally fairly wide spaced. And the most important thing is a lot of anomalous assays in the 1, 2, 3 gram range were generally not followed up. Back then, they were looking for 10, 12 grams. That's what would get them excited, but not so much the lower grade stuff. So since we acquired the property first in 2017 as a private company with 12,000 hectares, we've expanded to 51. And most of this was through staking and low cost option agreements and property acquisitions. Gold hadn't really started to spike yet. People were not that interested in the Chibougamau district. So Chad Williams, our chairman, and Red Cloud were able to compile a lot of this property at a fairly low cost. So we've done a few aeromagnetic surveys. The first one was in early 2019, and that covered the original Moose block and about 50 to 100 meter spaced lines. And since then, we acquired data from Honey Badger on a helicopter-based survey, which was much tighter spaced, lower flight lines. And so it covered the newly acquired Moose and Moose East and Nisk properties, but also some areas were reflown at the tighter spacing, and that's given us an incredible database to work with. We've also been active doing the regional prospecting and trenching and mapping. And as I said, we've recently started the diamond drilling at the Fan Camp property. This photo down at the bottom is some of the recent sampling that we've been doing in trenching at Fan Camp. So this map here, once again, shows the 4 main properties in our position. The Embry property is just a little bit up to the north, and we'll be exploring that in the next phase. So what I've talked about, these major structures that strike across our property. So we have what we call the Gersheville Deformation Zone, and that comes along, goes through here, and continues off. And then at about this point, it splays into another splay of the Gersheville, and this splay, which is called the Fan Camp property. Now, this one goes right through our Fan Camp property where we're drilling right now. And the Gersheville basically goes smack dab through the middle of our Moose property and strikes off down to the Nelligan discovery down here, which is pretty exciting. So we're actively looking at this trend along here. I'm going to clear this because I've got too much stuff on there. So we're actively looking at that trend along here from Nelligan to look for similar styles of alteration and potentially mineralization. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of outcrop in this area. There's a lot of till cover, but that's not only it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's also a good thing because there can be a lot of hidden deposits beneath the till, which previously were not found. So we'll have to use geophysics, IP, and things like that to find the anomalies and drill them. So this next, sorry, I'm just going to go back for 1 second. So we've identified 3 priority areas that we're going to be exploring. The number one is Fan Camp. The number 2 is this trend along the Gersheville Deformation Zone that goes across our property. And the number 3 area is where the Fan Camp and the splay of the Gersheville Deformation Zone, which goes through Philibert, Joman, and Meston, come together, and this makes an intriguing area to explore as well. You'll note that there's numerous other target areas on the property that we will get to at some point. There's a lot of ground to cover here, and we just won't be able to get to them all on this current phase, but we will get there eventually. So let's start with target area 1, and this is the fan camp property. It was discovered by Teck in the 1950s. Between the 1950s and early 1990s, there were about 105 drill holes drilled there, and mostly, and this is a key thing, these were very narrow diameter drill holes and very shallow holes. There's only a handful of holes out of that 105 that went any deeper than 100 meters. Most of them are 25, 30, 40 meters deep, and that's about it. But they were able to outline a really intriguing target that extends from let me just turn this back on, through the A, B, D, and E zones, but also the main fan camp deformation zone runs parallel to that, and there are additional targets that have been identified here, the C target, and a lot of this remains to be explored up here. So what they've identified and what we've been able to compile through our review of all of the historical information are there are about between 2 and 6 subparallel veins, and I put veins in quotation marks because they're not just a single quartz vein, they're more like quartz vein zones with a lot of quartz carbonate alteration, silicification, disseminated pyrite, but I'll use the term veins for now. And these are separated by about 15 to 30 meters. Many of them were only intersected by a few drill holes, and they remain open in most directions. The other interesting thing is that 2 plunging potential mineralized chutes were found at both the A and the B zone, and these are open at depth. And when I say at depth, this is below about 50 or 60 or 70 meters. I mean, very, very shallow. So we started excavator trenching in this area. We opened up some of the key veins in this area, and we did some regional prospecting. And as I mentioned several times, drilling is underway. We plan to do about 14 core holes for about 3,200 meters, and this will test some of these vein extensions, the subparallel veins, and the plunging mineralized chutes over the next month or so. So this is a zoom in of the 2 areas, of the fan camp principal area. So we have let me turn this on. We have the A zone down here, and the B zone here, and then the D zone here. And this is our prime area that we're going to focus on. You can see the historical drilling was focused down at the A zone and at the B zone, and there's a handful of holes at the D zone. The holes that are shown in red are our proposed holes, but as we continue with the program, we might fine-tune this a little bit depending on what sort of results we see in the core drilling. The other thing that's shown on this map, it might be a bit hard to see, is these green areas or places where we did recent trenching. We're just compiling the results now. And most of the assays are at the lab. So once we have all of this compiled, we'll be able to release it to the public. But a lot of the trenches not only were focused in the main vein area, but we were looking at some subparallel trends and other areas that could be of interest as well. So our other 2 main target areas are the target area 2, which I mentioned earlier, and target area 3. There's 2 down here, and here's 3. So target area 2 is a segment of the Gersheville Deformation Zone. It extends to the northwest from the Nelligan deposit. And Nelligan is a sediment-hosted deposit. It's very different for the Abitibi than what we're used to which are more typical vein and breccia high-grade deposits. This is a lower grade, much larger disseminated deposit. We have that same package of sedimentary rocks heading up in this direction across our property. So this is one of the key areas that we're focusing on. The other thing this map shows that there was some historical, back in the 1980s, ESSO did RC till sampling, looking for gold at the bedrock till interface as a method of looking for where there may have been a gold mineralization nearby. There's an interesting cluster on our property right about here, and this is one key area that we will look at. And as I'd mentioned, in target area 3, that's also where what we call the fan camp trend, or the Monster Lake fan camp trend, and then the Philibert Joe Mann trend come quite close together. There's a lot of interesting structural complexities in that area, which would be very interesting traps for gold mineralization. So just looking at comparing ourselves to some other companies in the Chibougamau district. These are companies that directly surround us or very close by. Vanstar, which I mentioned, is in the JV with IM Gold on the Nelligan deposit. Certainly a more advanced project with their maiden resource being released, but their market cap is sitting at 79.8. Dore Copper, which has picked up the Joe Mann deposit a little bit further to the to the east from us. They're sitting at about a 31 million market cap. And of course, the Northern Superior, which is immediately to the south of us, they are actively exploring and drilling a trend as well. So quickly, the management and board. Chad Williams there is the founder of the company. He's the executive chairman and a key person at the Red Cloud Group as well. Myself, over 30 years experience in mining exploration. Our CFO, Oren Baranowski, more than 20 years financial experience and capital markets. And Edmund Thoreaus, who works with corporate development for us. On the board side, Elaine Ellingham, very experienced, a lot of time working with the exchange. She provides us with a lot of great background. Phil Girard, an entrepreneur out of Quebec. Paolo Lostrito from the Red Cloud Group, and Rick Pallone, who has tremendous capital markets experience. So just quickly, 3 takeaways. Why invest in Blue Thunder? We have an incredibly large land position in what we believe is an emerging gold district. There's been a lot of historical significant production in the area, but more importantly, some fantastic new discoveries that are directly adjacent to us and on strike onto our property. And we've also picked up the exciting Fan Camp property, which has some incredible opportunity, which we're drilling right now. The time is right. Gold is frothy. We have a fully funded drill program underway. We're testing a high-grade gold deposit, and we've got the right team. A great mix of technical, financial, and strategic experience. So I'm just going to jump ahead real quickly and show you a few things in the appendix. This is the adjacent properties, and you can see the Blue Thunder properties are in the hatched area here. And then you can look at this at your own leisure, and you can see the adjacent companies and properties there. But this whole area is just staked completely tight. It was not like that when they started building the company several years ago, and now it's very hard to get any claims in there. So we expect a lot of interesting and exciting news to come out of this district in the months to come. And this map here you can look at later. This is a compilation of our airborne surveys, which there's a lot of fantastic information in here. So I'm going to wrap up there, Bruce, and throw it back to you. There might be some questions, and I'll let you forward those on.
That would be terrific, Rob. Perhaps we'll just have the moderator on the webinar keep the presentation up, because I do know sometimes it helps companies answer questions referencing their presentation. So if we just bring up, thank you, the first page of the report, and then Rob can utilize the presentation where he believes is the most useful to answer the questions. So first question has to do with the capital structure. Rob, it's who are the top institutions involved with the story?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. Right now, we are reaching out to the institutions to get their approval to release their names. So we're working on that right now. None of them have actually put their names into their annual or quarterly disclosures yet. So we're just getting approval from them. As soon as we have that, we will put that up on the website and show the names of the institutions. But these are common names that everyone would be aware of.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Rob. Next question. How many people are working for Blue Thunder at this point, both full-time and consultants?
Yeah, so you saw the management team, which I showed you at site. We have a full-time project geologist who's managing everything. His name is Francis Gay. Young fellow, very energetic and doing a fantastic job. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I believe it's 5 contract geologists right now who are working on the regional exploration, but also helping with the core logging. And then we have numerous technicians that have been helping with the trenching, the washing of the trenching, the gathering of the samples, working on the geotechnical core logging. So there's probably about 2 or 3 technicians as well. Most of those are contractors, which we, when the program winds down,
They're seasonal.
They're seasonal, yeah.
Perfect. Next question. Has the 2020 IP survey, ground and airborne, been completed? And the follow-up to that is, are there any thoughts to ground penetrating radar to understand the structures and mineralization?
So we are just planning the grids right now. We wanted the guys to be out there in the field and get comfortable with targets. So we're planning the IP grids, and we plan to start that very soon. GPR, ground penetrating radar, is a possible technique we could look at. Once we've got the grids established, it's easy to go back and do different techniques. And that would be also very useful to understand the thickness of the till. I'm not a geophysicist, so I'm sure I can pull up some other information as well. So hopefully that answered the question.
Perfect. Next one is, considering the number of rigs or the amount of drilling that you're doing up in the district, what is the situation with the assays of those drill samples? Is the turnaround an issue at this stage? And that speaks beyond, sorry, Rob, that speaks beyond Blue Thunder. Like you said, it's a very active camp. And I think the question is are you going to be able to get assays turned around quick enough?
We certainly hope so. We're actually using ACT Labs right now. They gave a good quote and a reasonable promise on turnaround. I think what's sort of reasonable is probably in that 3-week range is something which most labs seem to be quoting these days. So let's keep our fingers crossed, but I know all of the labs are busy. All of the drill companies are busy. It's hard to get geologists. It's hard to get good technicians. It's a very, very busy time. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we're able to get them back in a timely fashion.
Terrific. Next question. I think I can help with this from the Red Cloud's perspective, but I think it's a foreign investor asking, are you doing any charity flow through? As you know, Canadian companies with flow through are not really attracted to overseas investors. So the answer to that one is Blue Thunder a couple of months back did a financing that did have some flow through as a part of it, because all of the exploration activity that you guys do is flow through eligible according to Canadian rules. But at this point, you're funded and you're actively seeking, you're actively exploring, looking to find gold. And so people looking at this stage should be looking to buy in the open market rather than looking for a flow through to be playing on. Am I speaking for you, Rob, too much, or is that accurate?
No, that's a perfect answer. So I appreciate it.
And I think more to that point, I think that the funding is sufficient to handle the program that you guys have laid out in front of you, plus some buffer upon success to go chase potentially some bigger prizes. So I think you guys are in a great shape today, and I think the message this fall is you're gonna get some results, and the only way to get to be a part of this is to buy it in the market.
Absolutely. Thanks,
Rob. Yeah, so we're sort of, some of the other questions are a little bit more repetitive on what we spoke about. Can I just as a casual observer ask you personally, if you were to take a look? We know that the fan camp had some previous drilling on it, so we know that there's gold in the system there. But just on the Moose property, which was sort of the original property, if we were to go and take a look at the primary target areas on the Moose on the display, I was wondering if you could, from a personal standpoint, Rob, you're a very highly technical person. What area excites you the most, and what? Yeah, that's a good one. What area inside of Moose excites you the most, and why at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll go back to what I've discussed in the presentation, but I'm really intrigued by this whole trend along here. I mean, we know the Gerscherville is host to a lot of mineralization or directly related to it. It's mostly covered along this whole trend. There's very, very little outcrop here. So we have to sort of put our thinking caps on and figure out the best way to do it. And it's probably going to be some form of geophysics and then drilling. But this area, yeah, it gets me excited. Target area 3 as well, just having those two structures coming so close together on our property. But outside of that, something I haven't really highlighted, but there is sort of an old, I don't want to use the term old, there's a VMS trend, and that's volcanogenic massive sulfide trend along here. There's a lot of, and these can be tremendous deposits. They can be compact, high grade, 2-3% copper, zinc, gold credits. So this is an area that we're not focused on right now, but we certainly are excited about for down the road. And down here at Moose East, when you start to get close to some of these other deposits, you can see a lot of interesting geology, some historical drill results. Up to the north here, I think we're more in the intrusive, but you can get intrusive hosted deposits, so we won't discount that for the area. And then, of course, there's the wild card, this big Nisk area. This was all staked, didn't cost us anything except for staking costs. Some of it is hosted in intrusives, but there is we believe there's a previously unmapped trend of volcanics that come through here with some pretty exciting targets. So it won't be a priority for us right now. We do have time for this, but something else that kind of excites me on the for down the road.
Terrific, Rob. And outside of the exploration effort, do you want to just talk to people about any conferences or other events you might be? I know that you're going to be taking part in our upcoming Red Cloud Fall Conference in mid-October. But is there any other conferences that you're going to be part of and investor outreaches that the group here can be aware of?
Well, the most current thing coming up is we are participating at Beaver Creek, which is next week, and that's always an exciting conference. I've been to it numerous times in person. This year it's all online. It's going to be quite different, but we have a lot of one-on-one meetings. There's a lot of activity. A lot of people have reached out and they want to hear the story. So that's our next one coming up, and then of course the Red Cloud one later on. And those are the two main ones that we're scheduled for coming up.
Terrific. I mean, I know that Beaver Creek is the premier Junior Explorer Conference in North America coming up next week. So that'll be terrific, and an opportunity for anyone else who might want to ask some more questions. That's about the list of all the questions that we've got on the webinar. Rob, is there any concluding comments that you want to say before we wrap up?
Just appreciate the opportunity. The Red Cloud group is, really been helpful for us, and I just appreciate everyone that's online. I'm always available if there's more questions or follow-up that anyone wants. Please reach out, and I'd be more than happy to provide answers to the best of my ability. And stay tuned. We're very actively exploring right now. We've got rigs going. We're doing regional mapping, sampling, and results will be coming in fairly soon, and we'll be posting them as soon as we can.
Thank you, Rob, and thanks to all who are attending on this webinar. We've really enjoyed it, and we look to do another one again soon. Thank you.